Hey guys, Linda here. And yes, I still have a hole in my smile because I'm still waiting on the whole process of my oral surgery to be finished. So I'm super self conscious, but I love that you guys are okay with that. So, this is my first vlog. I've written blogs and I've done videos, but to put them together, this is my first time doing that, and I'm super excited. And I just felt like it was important for me to do a vlog versus just a quick video, and more than just writing, because I just felt like I really wanted to share this little tidbit of good juiciness that I feel like the Lord had shared with me lately. And it's just, I believe that it will apply to you as well. So here we go. Now, I've been reading a new book, and actually it's not a new book. It's a book I've had for a long time, and I've read it several times. So I'm rereading a really great book. That's the way to say it. And it's called The Love That Keeps Us Sane. And it's a little reflection on St. Therese of Lisieux. It takes some elements of her life and makes them applicable to us. And I love that the title says The Love That Keeps Us Sane, because I'm telling you, and maybe that's what attracted me to this book in the first place, was that I feel like I'm going to lose my mind so many times, so much, so often. I feel like I'm going to lose my mind. And so the idea of something that's going to keep me sane, keep me functioning, is a bonus, is a good thing. So now this book, it's super small, and if it is not deeply theological, it's very real life applicable. But here's the problem I've had. St. Therese, I love St. Therese. Now, if you're not super familiar with her, then you just need to go look her up. But she was a young Carmelite nun way back, and she lived in a cloistered convent, meaning that she didn't like go out into the world on a regular basis, if at all. She died very young from tuberculosis, and but she was a little powerhouse. She wrote one autobiography and then several other things that people wrote that she had said, that she maybe recorded the words that she'd said as she was dying. But she was pretty awesome. They call her the little flower. And her way of spirituality, she called it the little way, because she saw herself as a little flower in God's beautiful garden, that she wasn't some great saint that God was going to use all over the world. She was just a small little nun. And you know what the funny thing is, that she's now considered the patron saint of missionaries, or a little girl, a young woman who spent most of her life in a convent, cloistered convent. God has a funny way of working things out, doesn't he? He has an interesting way of using our lives, our journeys, our revelations, our struggles. He has a way of using it to benefit so many people that we have no idea how. So in this book, there's a chapter, and he talks about St. Therese's, her desire to be hidden. She wanted to live a very hidden life. And to be honest, for me, I have a hard time relating to that. You know, as I was rereading this book, I just kept thinking to myself, how am I supposed to apply these things to me? I don't live a hidden life. First of all, there's days I wish I could hide. With 9 kids and a ridiculous amount of animals and a crazy husband, I want to hide. I want to hide. I want to get away. But there's no hiding in this house. And then on top of that, the Lord has called me to public work, public ministry. Here I am making videos. Here I go and do speaking. I write. I'm not hidden. I don't live a hidden life. And so how do I apply what St. Therese, her spirituality, how do I apply that to my life? Because sometimes I think we're tempted to take the spirituality of a saint. We see somebody who's holy, and we read about their lives, and we want to mimic that in our own lives. And most of the time, it doesn't translate. The spirituality of so many saints does not translate in our lives today. But I think the great thing about what I want to share with you is that in this case, the Lord showed me how it did apply. How am I, in a very public world, supposed to live a hidden life? How do I live a hidden life? How do you live a hidden life? Even if you're not out doing public work, you don't live a hidden life. You have a family, you have friends, you have a job. So how do we do this? I'm going to give you 3 thoughts that I got out of this, okay? Okay, the spirituality of the day in which St. Therese lived was a time in our church's history where virtue and sanctity and holiness was often displayed through very intense works of mortification. So people would wear heavy things on them to weigh themselves down, or they'd wear like these hair shirts underneath their clothes to make them itchy. They worked at making their lives very uncomfortable, and they saw that as a means of growing in virtue and growing in holiness. And you know what? St. Therese tried this for herself and came to the realization that that was just not her way. That was not the way that the Lord had for her to grow in holiness and to grow in sanctity. And so she decided to not do those very obvious and intense works of mortification. She found that it was in the little things, in the little acts, the little sacrifices is where that she was going to grow in holiness. And so she chose a spirituality that was a very simple and unpretentious spirituality. That was her goal, to live simple and unpretentious. You know, and that was my first take home. I thought, you know, Lord, even though we are living in a public life, in a public world, we can still live very simple, unpretentious lives. And I do believe that that's something that I've worked at doing, that my husband and I work at doing in ministry, that we want to be transparent in a lot of ways. We want to be authentic and vulnerable. We don't want to be pretentious. We don't want to pretend that, dude, we got it all together. Look at us. We certainly don't want that, because that to me is a recipe for disaster. I want to be real with you. I want you to see that I'm still working at it just like everybody else. And so that was St. Therese. And, you know, she lived the simple and unpretentious life in this convent so well that actually when she was dying, the nuns were saying, she could overhear the nuns saying, oh, I don't know what the Mother Prioress is going to talk about her at her funeral, because she just she never did anything really virtuous. She didn't pursue the virtues. She didn't do anything really great. She's considered a doctor of the church. But, you know, they didn't see that in her. They just saw this simple girl who didn't try as hard as they did, who didn't do all those obvious acts of mortification and holy acts and all the right things. She just lived a very simple and unpretentious life. And that's a lesson for me, and that's a lesson for you. So one, how do I live a hidden life in a very public world? Live it simply and unpretentious. Be real. Be authentic. Okay, so my second take-home point was this. So there's a story he tells in this book about one of the sisters came to St. Therese and just kind of was venting to her and just saying how she was frustrated. She was exhausted. She just felt she was so worn out and exhausted about the work she was doing. And St. Therese asked her a question. She says, so how do you feel, though, when your work that you do is appreciated, when someone compliments your work, or you feel like you've been appreciated in your work? And the sister said, oh, I feel great. It gives me so much energy. It makes me feel so good when somebody recognizes the work I do. You know, and St. Therese says to her, well, it seems to me that it's not the work that's making you exhausted. It's the lack of recognition in your work that's making you exhausted. Man, we all want recognition. We work our butt off, right? As moms especially, we're working behind the scenes all the time. When was the last time someone came to you and said, you know what, Mom, I really appreciate the way you scrub that countertop. I've never seen it so shiny before. No one ever talks like that. No one ever really pays attention to those kind of behind the scenes things that we do. But you know what? That's okay. That's part of living a hidden life. It's not that we're not seen. It's that we're hiding our ego. Boy, that's a lesson for me. I do struggle with pride. I do struggle with a desire to be recognized. I do a lot of hard work. You know, working this kind of stuff isn't easy. I have to get up early. I have to find a quiet time in the house. I have to figure out how to do lighting. I have no idea what I'm doing. There's just a lot of work that goes into to do any of the work that I'm doing, all the work that you're doing, and a lot of people don't see that kind of work. And so it can be exhausting when it's not recognized, when we're not getting the response from the people that we feel like we deserve in the work that we do. So living a hidden life in a very public way is hiding the ego. Man, dude, that ministers to me. That speaks to me. Well, I just need to keep my blinders on, and I've said this to myself so many times. You just put those horse blinders on and you just do your work. Don't pay attention about what this person over here is doing, or how this family is living out their spirituality, or how this marriage is doing, or how this person is performing at work, or what this ministry is doing. Just keep your horse blinders on and do the work that God has called you to do, and not care about anybody else, not care about what everybody else is doing. Keep your nose in your own business. Be hidden. Hide that ego. Hide it. And allow it to not to rise to the surface. Just keep doing the work, not seeking the attention. Of course, people will say that because if you do anything that's out there on the internet or in any type of real public life, people are going to say, oh, you're just seeking attention, which is so not true. Most people who do what I do and what my husband does are people who are introverts, people who would prefer really to stay home and not do anything, and not to speak to people. But this is the life that God has called us to, and we are going to do it. We're going to be faithful to it. But there still comes the struggle of the ego. And so hiding that ego in our work and just doing the work. That was my second take home. So powerful and kind of painful. My third take home on this chapter in this book, this is one chapter. The chapter starts out with a quote by St. Therese, and it says, "Your face is my only homeland." Think about that. Isn't that beautiful? Your face is my only homeland. It was in the face of Christ is where Therese found her identity. That's where she found her mission and all that she was, all that the Lord was calling her to be, all the clarity of her spirituality, the clarity of her job, of her work, of her vocation, her ministry. Everything was found in the face of Christ. And so for me, this is something that the Lord is really, really, really hounding on me lately. It's just this intimacy with Him. Let me just focus on you, Jesus. I'm going to hide my ego away from my work. And I'm going to just focus on you. When I gaze upon the eyes of Christ, my face is reflected in His eyes, and I can see really who I am. We can never really know ourselves unless we understand ourselves in the context of Christ, in the context of who He sees us to be. So living a hidden life is not only just living simple and unpretentious. Living a hidden life is not simply just hiding our ego. Living a hidden life is burying ourselves in the heart of Christ. It is living and residing with Him in His heart and knowing who we are only through His eyes and finding that acceptance only through Him, not anything else. So there you go. How do you live a hidden life in a very public world? Live it simple and unpretentiously. Hide that ego. Hide that desire for recognition. And then find your identity in Christ. Know Him. Spend time with Him. Gaze upon Him. And let Him show you who you are to Him. Thanks for watching. I hope you tune back. I think I have more to share. I know that the Lord is doing great work in me, and He's doing greater work in you. And so just tune back, and we're going to journey this together. Thanks for watching.